Welcome to episode 436 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing yet another UK writer, director, Sheikh Shahnawaz, who just did a really cool low-budget crime thriller called Bluff. He's also done a number of short films, so we talked through his career, how he was able to make this new feature film happen for himself. So stay tuned for that interview. SYS's six-figure screenplay contest is open for submissions. Just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/contest. The final deadline is July 31st, so it is approaching. If your script is ready, definitely submit now. We're looking for low-budget shorts and features. I'm defining low budget as less than six figures. In other words, less than $1 million US. We've got lots of industry judges reading the scripts in the later rounds. We're giving away thousands in cash and prizes. If you want to submit to the contest or learn more about it, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/contest. Also this year, we are running an in-person film festival in tandem with our screenplay contest. It's for low-budget films produced for less than $1 million US. We have a feature and shorts category, a lot of industry judges, just like the screenplay contest. The festival is going to take place in Hollywood, California from October 7th to the 9th. If you have a finished film or would like to submit to the festival or learn more about it, you can go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/festival. You'll see a link to Film Freeway, which is where you're going to actually make the submission. We're actually taking all of the submissions for the festival through Film Freeway, so you can find us on Film Freeway as well if you're already on that platform. Once again, if you want to learn more about this, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/festival for the festival and sellingyourscreenplay.com/contest for the screenplay contest. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 436. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing UK writer, director Sheikh Shahnawaz. Here is the interview. Welcome, Sheikh, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Thank you for having me.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
So I'm from a small city in the UK called Birmingham, and I was born and raised here. I got into filmmaking. Well, I was always interested in making videos. I made them for my school projects from the age of 15, and then naturally I took it on to college. I studied media production at college. I made some short, I've always been making little short films with my friends. And then I think it was around my second year of college, I discovered the works of Martin Scorsese, Goodfellas, and Wolf of Wall Street. And it's from watching Wolf of Wall Street, because that came out in 2014. And then I immediately after watched Goodfellas. And I realized, so this is what a director does. You could tell it was made by the same person, even though they're decades apart and they're about completely different subject matters. One's about, Wall Street traders and the other's about, Italian mobsters, but they felt the same. I felt this connection between those two films, and then I obviously found out who Martin Scorsese was, and then I was like, oh, so this is what a director does, and this is what I want to do. I want to make films like Martin Scorsese. When people go to cinemas, they're like, that's a Sheikh Shahnawaz film, and that's what I want for myself. So that's how I got started out into filmmaking.
And so talk about that. So you see this movie, it really impacts your life. It inspires you. What are some of those next? Like, give us some practical steps. So then what are some practical steps of actually turning this into a career after you got inspired by this film?
I still don't think I have a career, to be honest. It's a weird career path, because it doesn't, especially when you're a writer's director, you're not sure if you even have a career, if it feels like a career. It's just, I want to make movies. So how do I do that? What's the first thing that comes to make a movie? You have to write a screenplay. So I taught myself how to write. I learned about, I read Robert McKee's story. I read Christopher Vogler's A Writer's Journey, and so many other screenwriting books. And I really absorbed myself into the craft of screenwriting. That's the first thing. Focus on your craft, because that's what you can only do when you're starting out. It's the only thing you really can do is focus on your craft, because you're not going to have a career unless you're good. So get good. And then naturally, I wrote my own. I wasn't really having too much luck finding a job, so I spent 2018 making a short film a month as practice, writing and directing, also producing, but mainly writing because I wanted to make a feature film in 2017, but I just didn't have the skills as a writer to pull off a feature film yet. And then in 2018, I set myself the challenge of writing a short film a month and producing it. And from there, because I was releasing it on a consistent basis, I was connecting with other people in the industry. People were hearing of me, and I don't know if you remember, Ashley, but you actually were my first and only Patreon subscriber when I was doing these short films.
I do remember. And as I was preparing for this podcast, I was like, I wonder if it's the same Sheikh.
You gave me $5 a month. You're the only person that gave me money every month, and I said thank you. So before I closed the Patreon, I said thank you to you. You're the only person that actually put money towards me.
That's hilarious. I really appreciated what you were doing. I did. Your shorts were good, and you were consistently putting it out. So no, I really did. I appreciate. I was very glad to support you.
Because you were just this, you didn't know who I was. I was just a stranger to you, this kid from the UK, and you were this, this huge guy in America with this huge podcast. I'm like, oh wow, he's giving me money. But even my own friends are family.
But I just want to be clear. When you said, I don't even know if I have a career. I'm not some guy with a huge podcast in America. I'm just some guy in his house putting a podcast out there. So,
that's what you are to me, though.
I know, but those feelings you have, that's the thing. We all have those same feelings. Like sometimes I'm doing this podcast, right? I don't even know if anybody's really out there even listening. It feels somewhat empty. And so it sounds like that was some of your things, but I really applaud you doing. Let's talk about that Patreon a little bit and just what you were doing with the shorts. How did doing a short a month for a year, how did that prepare you for this feature film?
I knew I wanted to make a micro-budget feature film. I was inspired by the works of Stanley Kubrick, Christopher Nolan, Robert Rodriguez, their first films. They didn't wait around in the industry. They pulled their resources together. They see what they had, and they made a film, no matter what. And I wanted to do that. I didn't want to wait on anybody, but I didn't know how I was going to do that because I didn't know that many actors. I couldn't really go up to people and say, oh, I'm making a feature film. Do you want to be part of it? Because they're like, yo, who are you? Have you ever done anything before? So when I was making those short films, I was figuring out my writing process, how I would write to resources around me. So for instance, I'd be like, 1 month, I'd be like, okay, what locations do I have access to? Oh, I have access to a garage. Well, in America, you'd say garage. Someone's a mechanic's garage. And I thought, okay, what can I do in that location? What can I do with 2 or 3 actors quite quickly in a day? What kind of characters can I create pragmatically to fit certain tropes in a genre? So if I'm telling a crime genre, obviously there'd be criminals, but then there'd be a victim. So I found 3 actors. 2 of them I made them criminals. 1 of them I made them a victim, and I put them in this location, and I figured out a story that I could tell in that time frame of shooting it in maybe like 4 or 6 hours. What else did I do? Oh yeah, when I'm writing the screenplay, I'm also thinking about okay, so if this is a 6-page script, I know if this is 4 acts, each act has to be 2 pages. So I'm being quite pragmatic. So this beat has to happen on this page count. So I'm being pragmatic about about story structure and telling and like normal industry practices. And because when you're pitching a script to a studio, those are the things they want to know, the act breakdowns or the structure or the arc. Like what's the point of this story, the themes, the character, and being able to, it can't be too wishy-washy. You have to be able to talk about these things and be specific. And I was doing that, even though it's just me writing these short films on my own. I was still thinking about those things. How would I pitch this to an executive? What's the title? What's the marketing? How would I market it? So I don't know if you noticed, but I like to use one-word titles just because, I don't know, when you're creating the poster, you can center it and it just looks a bit more grander. It just looks more marketable. So I'm thinking about those things when I'm writing as well. I like to spend a lot of time just coming up with the log line because that's the thing that people are going to see first. Like I don't actually spend that much time. I do actually spend that much time writing the film. I spent a lot of time just coming up with the concept, the idea, the characters, how I'm going to market it, why should people watch this film. actually putting pen to paper was my probably the shortest process. The time that I spent on the short film specifically, on the feature film, I had to come up with a completely new writing process. So that was all new to me.
Yeah. So let's dig into your latest feature film. We're starting to kind of talk about it now a little bit. It's called Bluff. So yeah, one word title, just exactly like you said. Maybe you can just pitch that to us. What's the log line or just sort of what's Bluff all about?
A London police officer goes undercover as a heroin addict in a small English town and manipulates an unsuspecting local junkie into working with him for a dangerous drug dealer.
And where did this idea come?
That's under 30 words.
Yeah. No, that's a good log line. So then tell me, so where did this idea come from? Where did you come as, what's the genesis of it?
So when I was making these short films every month, one of them was about an undercover cop. And I did some brief research on what it means to be, what it's like being an undercover cop in the UK, but I didn't do that much. And I kind of forgot about that whole world. And when it came to 2019, when I finished my short films and I wanted to make a feature film, and I was trying to come up with, what's the topic? What's the genre and subject matter that I could film on a budget? So nothing with VFX, obviously. So what's the genre without VFX? Crime, thriller. Because I didn't want to do a straight drama, just because as a first film, I don't think it's very marketable, especially when you're using unknown talent in the film. So what's the genre what genres are audiences willing to watch with unknown talent? Horror's the main one, but I'm not really much of a horror filmmaker. I enjoy watching horrors, but that's not what I want to be known as a horror filmmaker. Crime, thriller, film noir, neo-noir, I knew those were going to be the genres. And then I thought about my short film about the undercover cop. I thought, okay, what if I do some more research on what it means to be an undercover police in the UK specifically and I found this memoir from an undercover cop who operated in the region of England that I live in. And, he actually was an undercover heroin addict and he took down, some huge notable gangs. I think he had like over 1,000 years of arrests, prison sentence under his belt. And that's how many people he took down. I thought, this is in my backyard. This is, he operated in my own city, and I was noticing because I'm from the inner city of Birmingham, the city that I'm from in the UK, and I was noticing a lot of crime. I was noticing a lot of drug dealing, drug abuse, homeless people that are heroin addicts, and I thought this is perfect because this is what's actually happening around me. So why don't I make a film about this? I'm merging a popular genre like crime and thriller with my budget, which is being able to shoot in my backyard with actors that live here, and also about a subject matter that relates to what's happening around me right now in my city. I thought it was perfect. It was that idea. It emerged. It was the solution to all my problems with making this micro budget feature film.
So let's talk about the writing of the script. So then you kind of had a rough idea. You knew sort of what you had to shoot with. So correct me if I'm wrong. When you went in to write this, 100%, you knew you were going to shoot it on a modest budget, correct? You're going to shoot it
definitely.
yourself. You weren't going to try and sell it and or anything like that.
I have a second script second feature film that I knew I wasn't going to be able to make. This one needed a proper budget. This one needed stars. This one needed the full works, but I wasn't going to be able to make that one on my own. So Bluff was an answer to, okay, the industry is ignoring me. What can I do on a budget, on my own, with my own resources to use as a calling card to show this is who I am. I'm a writer, director, producer. This is what I'm capable of. This is what I made the film. It's out there. Let's if you're interested, I have a second script. So that was one of the thought processes behind making Bluff.
So yeah, no, let's dig into the writing of Bluff. Talk about, you mentioned a little bit that you don't spend that much time actually writing a script. You spend a lot of time just thinking through the things. Let's talk about that process a little bit. Do you have a notebook? Do you do index cards? How much time and what does that process actually look like of just coming up with the ideas? Are you scribbling stuff on note cards? Are you scribbling stuff on a notepad? And then how long does that typically take? You're talking, a month, 3 months, 6 months. And then how long does it take you to actually write the script once you have all of this stuff thought through?
Obviously, with the short films, they're a different format, so I didn't spend that much time writing. It was more conceptualizing and then quickly hashing something together. With a feature film, you can't cheat those things. You have to put in the time and effort. So
Mm-hmm.
it took me about 8 months all in all to write, from January to August. I think January, the whole of January, I think I spent researching, learning everything I could, listening to interviews, watching interviews, reading books, a lot of books. I went for my research. I went mainly to books, and then spending actual time with real heroin addicts and drug dealers. You know, I'm from the ghetto, Ashley. I don't know if you know this. So finding a drug dealer wasn't too hard. So
It wasn't hard.
I spent some time with actual drug dealers, and I
Uh,
spent some time with actual heroin addicts, and I learned about their lives, how they got into taking drugs, or even the drug dealers, how, you know, how did they get into dealing drugs, what are the challenges they face, and learning more about intricacies of that world. So when I'm writing the screenplay, I can put all this authentic information into the script
mhm.
that I knew other films couldn't have done. You know, with Martin Scorsese, when he made Mean Street, it was really authentic to him, to the life he was living, where he was growing up. I thought I had to do the same with my film. You know, it's so easy for an undercover cop crime thriller to fall into certain tropes and cliches that people have seen in other films, and I had to find a way, because the films that I was referencing, they were from the 80s and 90s,
Mhm.
and a lot of the things have been sort of done before. So I had to figure out a way to make it sing to modern audiences. How can I take that style of filmmaking and bring it to a modern audience and make it contemporary? So those are things I was thinking about in the screenplay. In terms of the 8 months, I think a month researching. I spent a lot of time just thinking about characters and plot beats just in my head for another month. I started putting pen to paper in the third and fourth month. And I think in the fourth month, at the halfway point, I figured out this huge twist in the film, and the film has a non-linear structure as well. And halfway through the writing process, I realized I need to do this non-linear structure now. I didn't want to make it a gimmick. I wanted, because although a fan of films like Reservoir Dogs and Memento with this backward structure, I didn't want to have a gimmick of a non-linear structure for the sake of it. And I think halfway into writing, I realized, you know how in a story you have an arc, character arc. I realized in my story there's two arcs, one in the first half and one in the second half. So rather than showing it in a chronological order, why don't I show the first and second half at the same time? So it cuts between these two halves of this character's life. And then the fourth to eighth month was figuring it out, banging my head against the desk, trying to figure out how to make this bloody structure work, because I kind of wrote myself
Mhm.
into a huge challenge of trying to, because I didn't want it to be a gimmick. I wanted each scene to mean something. And I think the fastest process I remember was the last month, or especially the last week. I could just write like no man's business. I could write nonstop.
Hmm.
But I know all the way from the first to sixth month, it was really slow. It was me just procrastinating, spending time researching, twiddling my thumbs, thinking, oh, I don't know what to do next. Maybe I'll try again tomorrow. It was in the last 2 months I really hashed it out. Yeah.
Hmm. And so, what does your development process look like after you had this script done for 8 months? Do you have some other writer friends, some other filmmaker friends, some actor friends? What did the development process look like? How did you get notes? How did you do any edits, or were you pretty much happy with your draft and you went into production?
Because it's a non-linear structure, I didn't want to finish writing the screenplay and then rewrite it. So every time I sat down to write, I would go from the beginning to whatever point I had written up to and rewrite that. So I was rewriting every time I sat down to write.
Hmm.
And then, so I would spend the first hour rewriting what I had written up to that point and then carry on writing. So when I finished the first draft, it was pretty much the final, other than changing bits of dialogue after doing a reading session with the actors. It was that first draft was pretty much the final product. I sent it to maybe one or two people who are actual screenwriters. I didn't want to send it to my friends and family who have, nothing about
Hmm.
filmmaking. And then again, oh, what did you think of my story? And they're obviously going to tell me, oh yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Hmm.
So I sent it to two writer friends. One of them said the non-linear structure is pointless, and the other one really loved it. So I already knew, okay, this film is going to be a little divisive, but at the end of it, you got to play to your strengths. And I
Hmm.
felt like I listened to his feedback. I listened to the one who didn't like it and the one who also liked it. Figured out what I could do in my filmmaking process to make sure to address the writer, he said he didn't like the nonlinear structure. He thought it was a little pointless, just to make it chronological. But I knew when it came time to filming it, those twists and the reason for the nonlinear structure, I have to film them, the cuts between different timelines in a certain way so I don't lose audiences and it doesn't feel pointless. It has to feel like, it's like a little like maths. I didn't want the audience here's the number 4. I wanted it to be like, here's the number 1, here's the number 2, and here's the number 1 again, and them to get to the conclusion of 4, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that filmmaker, that writer, when he watched the finished film, he was happy that I didn't listen to him, and I kept to I played to my strength and I stuck to my guns. Yeah.
So then what were some of the steps? Okay, you had a script you liked, then take us through going from script to actually getting this thing produced. Had you already, like, as you're writing it, you already knew what locations? How did you go about getting it cast? What does a crew like this look like? And how did you just get everything together? Was it self-funded? Maybe talk us through that process a little bit.
Okay, so at the beginning of the writing process, I already knew who the main actors that were going to be in it. So I told them, listen, I'm going to spend the next, I think I told them 4 months writing the script, but it ended up being 8 months. So they kept waiting. Oh, where's Sheikh? When's the script going to be done? I want to read it. I told them I'm going to write the script around you guys as the leads, and they've already seen my short films. I've worked with them on my short films, so they know what I'm capable of, and they trusted me. So they waited 8 months. I think one initial actor had to drop out, so I had to replace one role when I finished writing. But other than that, it was the actors that I wanted from the start. And when I was writing, I wouldn't write in locations that I knew were going to be impossible to find. Generally I wrote to locations I knew I could either film in for free or film in for very cheap. There was maybe 1 or 2 set piece locations that were a little hard to find, but I didn't think they were going to be impossible, like filming in a pub, someone's bar, or someone's function room, because those are big locations, and I knew because they were businesses, they might have an issue with me taking over for a day or two, and I knew because I didn't have a budget, I wouldn't be able to compensate them or anything like that. But luckily, from asking around within my network, I was able to find those locations and filming them for free. The actors, they all work on deferred payments, and they get a share of the producer's pool of the profits. What else is there? In terms of crew, you're looking at the crew.
Well, I noticed you had like a wardrobe, and I did notice you were the editor and the cinematographer. And so I want to talk about that a little bit, but you did have it looked like a hair and makeup or costume. There was a few other people. You were running, it sounds like you were running sound as well as running the camera.
The hair and makeup, I think we only needed a makeup artist one day, a proper one, because it was a special effects. I think that was it. And the hair and makeup on all the other days was the actors doing it themselves. Changing their hairstyles or figuring out their costumes, whatever they already owned. So even in the script writing, screenwriting process, I made sure that the actors were wearing, it was clothes that they already owned. Because I knew I was doing this on a very limited budget. I think that all in all, I spent $2,000 on the film by the end, and that was mainly on feeding the cast and travel and any other expenses, props and stuff like that. And I think, so by having a limited crew and limited cast, we could go to these locations and film very quickly, or in some locations just steal them, just because it's just a little handheld camera. I used the Sony A7 III, so it just looked like we were making a YouTube video or a vlog. I think there was only one occasion where we were filming in a hotel. It was me and the lead, the one actor, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" "Oh, we're filming a travel vlog." And they left us to it, and we were done in 5 minutes, and we left. No one ever bothered us because we could move very quickly and efficiently and get what we needed. Yeah.
So no, that's a great story. Yeah, just keeping, so like these hotels and stuff you're talking about, those are literally just, you didn't have any relationship with anybody that worked there, so you just went in there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So let's talk about once you're done the film, did you take it to some festivals? You're coming through me now that you found distribution and stuff. Did you enter this into festivals? What was sort of your plan once you got it done?
So yeah, we did the typical stuff. Submitted to all the top festivals, hired a publicist to make sure it was being seen by the the festival directors and the top programmers, and that's when I had a bit of a wake up call to what it's like in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a kid that made a film on his own, with his own resources, and it's not the 90s anymore where someone like Robert Rodriguez can rock up to Sundance with El Mariachi and become become a huge hit. We got rejected from every film festival we submitted to, and it was a bit of a tough pill to swallow because I thought making the film would be enough, just to merit. Like if all I had to do was make a good film, a great film, and that would be enough to stand out. But then that's when I had the wake up call where, who is quite important, what production companies or institutions are backing the film. And because I made this film in the UK, these top festivals, really and truly, they're only going to program the British film that the BFI, so the British Film Institute here, whatever
Mm-hmm.
film they submit to these top festivals, because why are they going to risk upsetting the BFI and all the money and networks and contacts and press and publicity that an institution like the BFI will bring to these festivals over me, some
Mm-hmm.
kid who made a film on his own, granted, regardless of how good the film is or not. And that was a bit of a wake-up call. But thankfully, the film is out there now. It's connecting with audiences. I've had great feedback. It's doing really well, great reviews. It's connecting with strangers around the world.
Mm-hmm.
They've reached out to me and told me this film really touched them. It made them cry because there's this one older white woman. I wouldn't think she'd be into a film like this, a crime thriller. And she said she lost her son-in-law to heroin addiction, and my film made her cry. And she had no connection to me. I don't know how she discovered the film. I have paid ads running. I'm doing all the typical press and marketing. That's what I realized. It's so quick as a filmmaker to be like, oh, I want to be rich, famous. I want to be a big director.
Mm-hmm.
But then it just reminded me why I wanted to make this film. Is to connect with audiences. As a filmmaker, you don't make films for yourself. You make them for audiences. You don't make them for the industry. You make them for people who want to watch this art. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
happy again now.
for sure, for sure. So, so I noticed with your trailer, it comes up with indie rights. I just signed with indie rights earlier this year with my film, The Rideshare Killer.
Fantastic.
And I'm curious, how did you end up signing with indie rights, or do they just have one portion? Do you have a UK distributor? Talk us through sort of your distribution a little bit.
I've been following indie rights for a very long time, since maybe 2016, when I had this crazy idea of making a micro budget feature film. I would listen to all these podcasts, Indie Film Hustle, Alex Ferrari, and he'd bring on Linda to his show.
Mm-hmm.
And it was crazy to think that there's this opportunity for me to make a film, and indie rights can get it on these platforms, and it can be I came up with the plan that since 2016, if I make a micro budget feature film, I want indie rights to distribute it and hopefully generate some revenue and pursue filmmaking full time. And it was over the course of making my feature film where I thought, okay, let me try the festival route. Let me see if any bigger distribution companies will be interested in it first. So obviously, indie rights naturally were happy to take it on and bring it to audiences worldwide. And I was incredibly happy because it's finally out there now for audiences to watch.
Yeah. And you came to me through a publicist emailed me that had you guys. How did you get the publicist? Is that something you paid for? And I'm really asking halfway just for my own film. I'm curious kind of how you were able to get on my radar, as maybe I can get my film on other people's radar in the same way.
I knew marketing was going to be key because I'm not disillusioned about the kind of film I have. I have a film with no stars, no recognizable talent, no recognizable filmmakers. The strength of the piece is that it's a genre film, and a very well done genre film. It's very marketable. So what can I do? Okay, I need to do paid ads. I need to obviously create all the key assets for marketing film, like the poster, the trailer, the teaser, social media, and as well as that, try to make some buzz within the industry. So like I mentioned, when I was doing the whole film festival phase of the film with the submissions, I hired a US publicist to help me get it in front of these top programmers. Obviously that didn't work out, but now that the film's out there, I knew I had to have a publicist to help me get critic reviews, help me market the film within the industry, as well as general audiences being able to find that press. So when they Google the film, they can see, oh, this looks legit. This has reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb. It has all these press releases on the news. Oh, I might give it a watch now. Like, stuff like that is very important, because if it's not enough to just put the film out there. Like, even when I was in my depressed phase, when I didn't get into any of these festivals, I was looking at all the films that they programmed that year or the years before. And I thought, I've never heard of any of these films from the years before. So even if you get into Sundance or South by Southwest or Cannes, there's a good chance that nobody will still watch your film. So that scared the living daylights out of me. So I thought, I don't want to be one of those filmmakers. What can I do to get eyeballs on my film? I'm going to be really aggressive with the marketing. So I actually raised up £5,000 of investment to market the film. So to put that into perspective, I spent $2,000 producing the film, but I probably spent maybe $7,000, $8,000 marketing the film, because that's how important marketing the film is. Because your film, if nobody knows about your film, you don't have a career. You're dead in the water.
Yeah. Sound advice. Yeah. Those are amazing numbers. And people really, should listen to that. So I just like to wrap up the interviews by asking the guest, is there anything you've seen recently that you think is really good? Anything maybe a little under the radar, HBO, Netflix, Hulu, anything you've seen recently that you could recommend to a screenwriter?
In terms of recently, I don't know if it's under the radar, but it hasn't been doing that well in the box office, which kind of upsets me. But The Northman, the latest Robert Edgers film, it's a little art house, but it's done really well, and it is different. And although I'm a fan of mainstream films as well, it's nice when a studio takes a chance on a slightly unusual film and gives it a blockbuster budget. And I'd really recommend people just to watch that, just to see that, you know what, you can still make these huge budget intellectual properties that on the surface might not attract mainstream audiences, but are really well done films. It's not impossible. You don't have to make the next Fast and Furious film or Marvel film to have a career. You can still make these, completely unique, high budget films like The Northman. And I think it's getting there in terms of the box office, and I hope it does well. I think it'll do well when it moves to the streaming phase.
Yeah. So that's a great recommendation. I haven't seen that one, so I'll check that out. So how can people see Bluff? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like?
It's already out there. It came out last week on the 28th. So you can go to bluff-movie.com to find more information on the film and where you can watch it. You can follow the film on Instagram at Bluff Movie UK. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Cinesheikh, CINESHEIKH. Okay,
perfect. Yeah, and I will round all that up for the show notes, and we'll put that in there so people can click over to it. Well, Sheikh, I really appreciate you coming on my podcast and talking with me. And I can say honestly, I get a lot of these publicists sending me things, and I just watched the trailer, and your trailer caught my interest. I thought, this does look like a really cool movie. So I think I saw something in there. So I applaud you for putting together a good film. And same thing with the Patreon. I get emails all the time from people, hey, kick into my Kickstarter and Patreon, and I rarely do, if something strikes my interest. But
I don't know how you found my Patreon, because I don't think I reached out to you. I think
you would have reached out. I think you must have maybe mass emailed me or something, and I just wanted to watch one of your shorts and thought, this is pretty good, so I'll go ahead and I'll kick into it. So I commend you on doing that. Part of this business is just persistence and hustle, and you definitely have that. So congratulations on getting all this done.
Thank you, honestly. And I want to thank you again for actually giving me money on Patreon.
You're welcome. I think it only ended up being about $15, but you're welcome. And I hope it did help. So perfect. Well, Sheikh, I really appreciate it.
Take care.
We'll take it easy. Bye. SYS's From Concept to Completion screenwriting course is now available. Just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It will take you through every part of writing a screenplay, coming up with a concept, outlining, writing the opening pages, the first act, second act, third act, and then rewriting. And then there's even a module at the end on marketing your screenplay once it's polished and ready to be sent out. We're offering this course in 2 different versions. The first version, you get the course, plus you get 3 analyses from an SYS reader. You'll get 1 analysis on your outline, and then you'll get 2 analyses on your first draft of your screenplay. This is just our introductory price. You're getting 3 full analyses, which is actually the same price as our 3-pack analysis bundle. So you're essentially getting the course for free when you buy the 3 analyses that come with it. And to be clear, you're getting our full analysis with this package. The other version doesn't have the analysis, so you'll have to find some friends or colleagues who will do the feedback portion of the course with you. I'm letting SYS Select members do this version of the course for free. So if you're a member of SYS Select, you already have access to it. You also might consider that as an option. If you join SYS Select, you will get the course as part of that membership too. A big piece of this course is accountability. Once you start the course, you'll get an email every Sunday with that week's assignment. And if you don't complete it, we'll follow up with another reminder the next week. It's easy to pause the course if you need to take some time off, but as long as you're enrolled, you'll continue to get reminders for each section until it's completed. The objective of the course is to get you through it in 6 months so that you have a completed, polished screenplay ready to be sent out. So if you have an idea for a screenplay and you're having a hard time getting it done, this course might be exactly what you need. If this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It's all one word, all lowercase. I will, of course, link to the course in the show notes, and I will put a link to the course on the homepage up in the right-hand sidebar. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing another real do-it-yourselfer, Neil McKay. He just did a cool, low-budget psychological thriller film called Trip. Again, he's a guy who just made things happen for himself. He did a couple of short films, and now he has this feature film which he wrote, directed, produced, and even edited. So he'll be talking about all of this on the episode next week. So just keep an eye out for that. That's our show. Thank you for listening.